Hi everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful week and that you got practice building analytic web apps in Python. Today we're going to look into the scatter matrix. We're going to learn how to build a scatter matrix, how to manipulate the x-axis, the y-axis, create the legend, and why the scatter matrix is so powerful. We're also going to learn how to use the callback to create a confirm dialog. So if a user clears a dropdown, you have a message telling the user to please choose dropdown variables because it doesn't make sense to have a graph without any dropdown variables. You will also learn how to use a -no update. So when the user does click the X, the figure does not update, but the confirm dialog is displayed and the user can see this. So these are two things that I haven't covered in past tutorials, and I'm going to teach you right now. The data we're going to use is data from the US government, from I think it's called the Joint Economic Committee. And you can download the data from two places, either from the Google Drive, the link that I put under the video, just click on it and you can download this, or you can go into my GitHub, go into scatter matrix. Again, this link is below the video, and then just download the Python file. You're going to use Python for this, and the CSV social capital file, the Excel sheet. Okay, just make sure they're in the same folder. So download it, run it, make sure that it's either on your Spider, Visual Studio, Sublime, and just make sure you play it so you run the script so you can actually follow along with me. So if you know some of what I'm going to talk about right now because you're a consistent viewer and you know a little bit about Dash, feel free to go under the video and click on one of the links here to jump to certain sections of the tutorial if you want to learn something specific that you don't know, maybe the confirm dialog or the -no update, or a little bit about customizing the scatter matrix. Okay. So I'm going to assume most of you are relatively new to Dash. So let me explain a little bit about why we use the scatter matrix. Scatter matrix is usually used when there's a lot of variables and you want to have a bird's eye view of possible correlations between pairs of values. So here, for example, let's add some more values to this social capital project. Okay, so here we have about 1, 2, 3, 6 values, and immediately we can see that some pairs, like here, the children read to every day and percentage of women currently married, doesn't seem to have a lot of very strong correlation, but this one here does have a pretty strong correlation. The percentage that get emotional support of parents, and then the percentage of children that watch 4+ hours of TV per week. So if we zoom in a little bit here, you can see this is a positive correlation. And this is divided by state: Washington, Montana, Virginia. So the higher the percentage of people that seek support, the higher the percentage of children that are watching TV for 4+ hours per week. Here we have a negative correlation. The lower the percentage of women currently married, the higher the percentage of women currently married, the lower the percentage of children that watch TV for 4 hours or so. So this is why the scatter matrix plot is so cool, because you can really see interesting possible correlations between values. Instead of plotting the scatter plot once and then another scatter plot, you can just put everything at once right here and see everything with the bird's eye view. Okay, so how do we create this? Let's go into the code. Okay, so make sure you have this code in front of you, and make sure to import these libraries. If you don't have these libraries, all you have to do is just install two things: pip install Dash, and then pip install pandas, and you'll be ready to go. So we install all these things, we import the libraries. We're going to take this data from the Joint Economic Committee from the US government, read it into a pandas data frame. We're going to drop these columns because you don't really need these columns right here, the FIPS code and the FIPS code here. Maybe if you had a choropleth map, but in this case you don't need it. So we're going to drop them, instantiate the app, and then we're going to create the layout. Okay. So the layout has just one inside this big div, inside this big page, we're going to have multiple things. Let's see what the layout gives us. So the first thing we're going to have is a confirm dialog on top. The display is going to be false. So the first time you refresh the page or you upload the app, it's not going to display the confirm dialog. It's going to be hidden. But you're going to have the title of the page. You see, remember here is a title, scatter matrix. And then you're going to have a drop down, and then you're going to have a graph. So we have here the title, the drop down, and the graph. Okay, the drop down has this ID. We're going to use down in the callback to tie everything together. All the columns of the pandas data frame of the Excel sheet are going to be options inside the drop down, and that's why you see all these different options inside here. And then we're going to have these 4 values that are by default going to populate be chosen in the drop down. So these, if you refresh the page, you'll see that only these 4 values are chosen when the app starts. And then multi-true because we're using multiple drop downs. And then we're going to go into the graph. Again, this ID we're going to use in the callback below. And then the figure is going to be an empty dictionary. So now there's nothing in there, but with the callback, everything is going to go inside. The figure is going to go inside there. So if I actually hide the callback, let's see what is the layout. I only have this layout, okay? And this layout is this. It is correct. It is working properly. We have the title, we have the drop down that I can change, but it doesn't change anything because I don't have the callback, and we have an empty graph, right? Empty graph right here, an empty dictionary. So now we're going to use the callback in order to create this interactivity with Python and create our own analytic web app. So the first thing we're going to do, let's go over the function of the callback before the callback decorator because it's easier that way. So in this function, we see here that we're taking the drop-down value. The drop-down value refers to the input, right? It refers to this component property, the value. It always goes inside the argument of the callback function, right? And this refers to, as you can recall, my drop-down, it refers to these 4 values, right? To this value attribute. So the first time we reload the page, this is going to be a list of 4 values. And because it's a list of 4 values, the length of this list is bigger than 0, right? It's probably equal 4. Not probably, but for sure equal 4. So if the length is bigger than 0, build a scatter matrix. We'll go over the scatter matrix at the end. Build a scatter matrix plot, and then return 2 things. Why am I returning 2 things? I'm returning 2 things because I have 2 outputs, right? The first object that is being returned right here, let's make this a little bit smaller so you can see. The first object that's being returned, the false, refers to the first component property of the first output, refers to this, okay? And the second object being returned always refers to the second output, that is the component property, the figure. Okay, so this figure that we just built here, the scatter matrix, is going to go inside this figure, which actually is the figure attribute of my graph, my chart. Okay, and this confirm dialog, we're actually saying false because I'm saying if the length is above 0, if the drop-down has values, then false inside this attribute, the displayed attribute of the confirm dialog. So the confirm dialog is actually my confirm dialog dash component is this ID, and I'm going to say return false to displayed because obviously I do not want to display anything if there are some things in the dropdown. However, if the dropdown length is 0 because I clicked X and there's nothing in here, like here, then I want to make sure that confirm dialog is being displayed. So display true. So in that case, I'll return true, which returns to here, display true, which actually returns to here, display true. Okay, so that's how you actually display the confirm dialog or not display the confirm dialog. And the other thing you can do is a dash no update. Now, instead of building this whole figure again and saying if no dropdown is chosen, then give a basic x-axis and a basic y-axis and like choose a customized values, I'm just going to say don't update the figure. So whatever I had before, click OK. If I had a figure of 2 values, this one, if I click X, I'm going to say dash don't update. So this figure is going to stay this way. If I chose 3 values, same thing. If I click X, this figure is going to stay this way. There's going to be no update to the figure. So this dash no update, you typically use this with multiple outputs. When you have a callback with multiple outputs, but you want some outputs to be activated, to get updated, and some outputs to not get activated, then you use dash no update. So you see here, I'm activating this output, I'm displaying true, I'm returning that object, but here, I'm saying no update. So this second callback right here, this figure, not callback, sorry, the second output is not going to be updated. So it just stays the same as it was before. And this only works because I start my graph with automatically with 4 values, right? If my graph started with 0, dash no update will update nothing, it will be 0. So that's why it works perfectly well. Okay, so this is how you use dash no update, and this is how you return the values. Always return the true false values into the displayed attribute of the confirm dialog, of the ID that pertains to the ConfirmDialog component. If you want to read more about the ConfirmDialog component, just go into right here, the ConfirmDialog. You can read a little bit more about it here in Dash. I'm going to add this link below the video, and you can see the other attributes that you have. The other attributes are actually cancel and click, so you can actually see how many times the cancel button was clicked on. If I did here, how many times the user clicked on the cancel button, and how many times the user clicked on the OK submit button, which is right here. And you can also see a timestamp of the last time that it was clicked, so you get a better idea of when the user clicked on your confirm dialog. Okay, so if you have any questions about the callback or about returning the objects of the callback into the outputs and how everything is connected, feel free to add a comment below the video. I'll try my best to answer you whenever I can. Now we're going to learn about the dash, the plot least scatter matrix, which is right here, the scatter matrix. So the scatter matrix, we're going to learn about the few attributes that the scatter matrix has and how we actually build a scatter matrix with Plotly Express. If you enjoyed this video so far, don't forget to click the like button, hit the like button and click the, it's not the submit, why it's escaping me, subscribe below, say this every time, I know it escapes me, and turn on your notifications so you can see every week, you'll get a notification of a video that I show you on building analytic web apps with Python using Dash. Okay, so the scatter matrix. There's many different attributes here, but usually the most important attributes are on top. So all you really need is the data frame and the dimensions to create a scatter matrix. Very easy. That's why I love Plotly Express. So the thing we're going to do, we're going to create, if there is values inside the dropdown, we're going to create a figure, Plotly Express dot scatter matrix. We're going to say the data frame is going to be df, and then dimension is going to be all the drop-down values, right? All the values, which at the beginning is these 4 values, the list of all the values inside the dimension. So dimensions is a list, right? And very important to know, it's a list or an integer. So we're going to choose all these values, and then it's just going to compare between those values, just like we do here. So this one is the x-axis is the percentage of children with 4 hours or more, and the y-axis is the percentage of women currently married. So all the time the x-axis here is going to be the same, and the y-axis is always going to be the same when you look from right to left to right. So we have the dimensions, and then I'm going to put color because I want color to be population. So you see the higher the population, the more yellow it becomes. California is the highest one, probably New York, Florida, yeah. And then we're going to use hover data. You don't always have to use hover data, but hover data is very good to use if you want to add stuff to the hover that is not automatically in there. So here, for example, state is not automatically in there because we use dimensions, these drop-down values, and we use population, but we don't use state. So to add it, just open the dictionary, and just the key should be state, and the value should be true. Then population, as you can see here from the pandas from the pandas data frame, populations are just digits. There's no commas. It's really hard to read. Is this 38 million? Is this 3 million? So I want to add a comma there. So to add a comma, so it looks actually like this. You see 38 million, comma 654,200 and something. You just have to do this. You have to do population will be the key because that's the column you're using, and then put this colon. You always have to put a colon before numbers, and then put the comma here. Okay. If you want to learn about different ways you can play around with the template or the hover data, just go into this link below the video. It's going to be right here. Open this link. And just go into customize hover text, disabling or customizing hover of column Plotly Express. And here will give you some more examples of all the different things you can do with the hover data. Okay, very important to remember that this colon right here is something you have to put before numbers. I think you use percentage when you do for dates, if I'm not mistaken, but you can read more about it. Okay, so we play around with the hover data, and now we have the hover data exactly the way we want it. And the second thing we're going to look at is to here. So here I'm going to update some traces. Here I'm going to say diagonal visible. Now it's false, but if I put true, let's see what happens. If I put true, this diagonal that's empty is now going to be filled up, right? It's usually, you can turn it into false because there's always going to be 100% correlation because it's exactly the same axis. The y and the x-axis are exactly the same. This is where they meet, right? You see they're exactly the same. So in order to make maybe the data a little bit cleaner, you can put this as false. Another thing is show upper half or show lower half. You don't really need to put both of them. You can do with one of them. But what it does is you can take one of them out. So if I don't want to see the upper half, if I don't want to see this upper half right here, then I can just do false. Show upper half, false. And what happens when I do that? This you'll see when it updates into 2 seconds, this will come out. And there's a possibility it's okay if you do that because they're exactly the same data. Okay, the data in the upper half and the lower half are exactly the same. They're just reversed. So one time the x-axis is on top and the other time the y-axis is on top. So it might be cleaner to see it this way. It really depends how you want to see it. I'm going to put true, so we just have both of them there. Okay, and the last thing I'm doing, I'm updating layout. Now, with a scatter matrix, you have every value, every pair will give you another axis. So here we have one x-axis, x-axis 2. We have 4 x-axes, and we have 4 y-axes. And so if I want to change something with the axes, I can do it with the update layout, and I just have to mention that they are axis number 1, axis number 2, or x-axis or y-axis, right? This is specifically the axis title, okay? What I want to do, I just want to make the title very small, because if the title is very small, 3 pixels, then it won't really bother me. I know you can't read it, but it won't really bother me or the user when they're choosing the different more and more scatter matrix and figures to plot. Because you see, if we do more than 8, because I only did 8, you'll suddenly see that it's very big. The pixels by default is 10, and if everything here was 10, they would just overlap over each other and you wouldn't really be able to read anything. So I just said, you know what, we're not going to read it, that's fine. We'll just see everything in the hover data, and we won't refer to the title of the x-axis or the title of the y-axis. So I think there's about like 18 or 15 columns here. If you want to, I only did up to 8. If you want to, you can do up to 15. You can also do, I think, y-axis instead of, you can do title, and then I think it's visible, and then you put just false or true, so you won't even see the y-axis or the x-axis. Let me show you where you need to go to see that, because it's very important. Go to Python and go to Plotly and go to figure of reference. And in figure reference, go down here to it's called SPLUM, scatter matrix Plum. And then here you'll see that you can see the x-axis, if it's visible or not, just control find. Let's go to x-axis, visible, let's see visible. dimensions, name, template, diagonal, not that, x-axis here. So here you can see, one second. Okay, so it's actually invisible right here. I found it, and you can just, to activate it, all you have to do is go here to the code and just, I erased x-axis. All you have to do is x-axis 1 visible false, x-axis 2 visible false, and so on and so on. If you want all four, all 5 or 6, then they won't be seen, as you can see here in the dashboard. This one is visible false and visible false. So, but it also takes the y ticks away, the x ticks away. So you got to choose what you want to do. You can either do that, or you can make the fonts a little bit smaller, like it did before. Go back. Okay. So this is the scatter matrix. This is how you build it, and this is the advantages of the scatter matrix. If you had any questions about anything in here in the code, or comments, or something you'd like to learn, feel free to write below the YouTube, to write me in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, click the like button, subscribe below, and turn on your notifications so you'll receive a video on building analytic web apps in Python using Dash every week. And never give up, keep practicing, and always remember we're better together. So always help each other out. Until next week, bye-bye.